Welcome to Haunted Road Media, in which today we are going to be exploring the best paranormal movies for Halloween. Hi, I'm Mike Ricksecker, author and ghost story, and welcome to Mike's Morning Mug, in which we're going to be talking about the best paranormal movies for Halloween. Now, these are my personal favorites, the ones that I always seem to go to when it becomes Halloween time and you're really in that mood. Of course, I'm usually in that mood anyway, but this month especially, October, that's when I start busting out a lot of these different videos. So let's get into it. There's no particular number. There is a little bit of an order and a couple of surprises at the end. First on deck is the Amityville Horror. Yeah, the classic from the 70s, not any of the remakes, the original Amityville Horror. Now, of course, I don't believe that the Amityville Horror is actually true. I believe it was completely a hoax. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that I don't believe that the house there in Amityville on Ocean Avenue isn't haunted. I actually do believe it's haunted, but not in the way that was described by the Lutz family. And if you want to know what I'm talking about, I got a couple other videos on this channel about that. But I'm talking about the movie. And when it comes to the movie, it's an absolute classic haunted house tale. You got all kinds of crazy things going on with the Paranormal Activity, the pig with red eyes, George is going crazy, all kinds of different things going on. Of course, you have the classic music, and the setting is in a real, true murder house. So it has a lot of different things going on for it, and therefore Amityville Horror, even though I don't believe the Lutz story, it's a classic. Next up is Oculus, and yeah, some of these I actually physically have. Others I just, I've ordered on streaming and they're there permanently. So Oculus, now this is an interesting one that came out a few years back. And what I really like about it, it goes into all the mirror lore. And there's not a lot of movies that really delve into mirror lore. So it has a lot of that going on. It has two different storylines playing back and forth, where you got the present storyline going on and the past, and of course they work up together to meet each other within this movie. Of course, I personally like all that kind of lore and history and that sort of stuff. They've really integrated deep within the storyline, and Oculus really has. Then there's Sinister, another one that came out just a couple years ago, and what's really cool about this one is their use of the movie reels that are found up in the attic to delve into that story and piece together again kind of the history of how the different murders had happened, and the way it's strung all together is very, very interesting. Of course, they have the supernatural being that's making all of this happen, but the way that they've used these movie reels to amp up the haunting, very, very cool. And of course, over time you learn how everything is related. Throw in a bunch of mystery for me, and I'm a sucker for it. Next is Insidious. Yeah, I really like the Insidious franchise. Up to 4 movies now, and they're talking about a 5th one. Of course, the way they've pieced that all together, the timeline is really kind of interesting. You have 1 and 2 that are chronological, 3 which goes way back into the past, and then 4 which is kind of in between 3 and 2. But then 4 also ropes back into the first one and links it all together. But what I really like about Insidious are some of the different paranormal and supernatural elements that they bring into this. They deal a bit with Gonzalez's experiments. There's a lot of things here that play into shadow people. You have some theories about what happens if your soul actually leaves your body. What will other entities try to do? Will they try to actually embody your vessel? And then, of course, there's what they call the quote-unquote further, and this is basically another plane of existence. So Insidious really touches on a lot of different aspects about the spiritual plane and about different types of paranormal activity. Another classic, The Exorcist, and this one's actually the extended director's cut. Of course, how can you possibly go through the Halloween season without checking out The Exorcist? Now, this is really the movie that kind of spawned all of the different types of possession movies that were out there. Who can forget little Linda Blair and her head spinning around, throwing up on herself and all of that? But the movie starts off in Iraq and a archaeological dig site, and I like how that actually plays into what happens later on in the movie. Of course, I think you kind of forget about that at times because of all the crazy stuff going on. But again, this movie, because of real, true demonic possessions actually being a thing, literally scared the crap out of people. Of course, we might laugh at some of the special effects now, but it still really plays into people's psyche. Then there's The Conjuring, and this is the first one, not the second, although I do like both movies, so we'll just chalk it up to the Conjuring universe, which I do enjoy the Conjuring universe as a whole. Of course, you have to take into account that most of the tale that they're telling, even though it's, quote unquote, based on a true story, most of it's fiction. So, when it comes to The Conjuring, I personally know Andrea Perron. She's a good friend of mine. She's the oldest daughter in the movie. And not the actress, the actual real Andrea Perron. The real story, and if you ever get a chance to, please pick up Andrea's book. She has a trilogy on what really happened. And what really happened is actually more terrifying than what they portrayed in the movie. Now, there were actual moments in there where there were good times and really loving times there at the house. It wasn't all frights, but it extended over a 10-year period of time. It wasn't just like they moved in and all this happened within a couple of months and then the Warrens showed up and all of that. And even the way that the Warrens were contacted, it was very, very different. Carl and Keith Johnson actually played a role in all that, and they're not depicted at all in the movies. There's a lot of things that happened over many, many years. Bathsheba got a bad rap, but there are many, many other entities within the house as well. So, like I said, I highly encourage you to check out Andrea's books. As far as the movie itself, it does play up as a really great haunted house movie. The history and lore that they interjected plays well for the movie. And I really do like how they expanded the Conjuring universe. So I do like The Conjuring 2. The Annabelle movies were, the first one, not so much. The second one, the creation one, I thought was pretty good. And then, of course, you got the creepy nun, Valak. So check out our true story of Valak video as well. The Others. Now, this is one that is like your classic haunted house tale where you're out in a foggy area somewhere out in England. The backdrop is World War II, and you're in a very, very creepy old mansion. And you have this woman and her children all alone, and you have the mysterious servants that come along, and you know that they have some secrets there that they're just not divulging. And the twist in this movie is something that we actually talk about many times here on the Haunted Road Media channel. The Others is one of those movies that we actually reference a lot on Edge of the Rabbit Hole and the Inside the Upside Down shows because of the way that the ghosts believe that they are still amongst the living. They don't realize that they've actually passed on, and you are watching the movie from the perspective that they are really, truly, currently living in that house, when actually they are living concurrently, basically on another plane of existence from the actual living people. So it's one of those theories when I talk about stacked time theory and some different space-time theories and whatnot, that movie always comes into play. And the way the movie is presented, of course, is your classic English haunted house tale. Very creepy, very eerie. It's a bit of a slow burn, but very, very cool. The Sixth Sense. Now, this is the one that broke out M. Night Shyamalan's popularity, and this is another one where there's a lot of twists, and you don't realize it until the very end what was really going on the entire time. Very subtle how it's worked in there, the secret, throughout the entire movie. Of course, here you have a kid that's being haunted. You have Bruce Willis that's trying to help him out. It amps up along the way as it shows a little bit more of what the boy is actually experiencing. The Sixth Sense also depicts how a lot of psychic abilities tend to work. And since I don't ever claim to truly be a psychic, I have some sensitivities. I don't claim to be a psychic medium, although I have many friends that are. And they do reference this movie, also the movie The Gift, as a way that their gifts truly work. And also, this is the movie that made it click for me about electronic voice phenomena. When I was younger, I'd read a lot of Hans Holzer. He did a lot of recordings throughout his investigations, and it didn't really click for me back then until I saw The Sixth Sense, and he's actually, cranking up the volume on his tape recorder to listen in on an old session, and sure enough, he's basically doing a listening back to EVP, electronic voice phenomenon. When I saw it, of course, I was a little bit older. I was a child when I read Hans Holzer, and then it clicked for me. Oh, that's what it was. So Sixth Sense really is one of those movies that's like, yeah, this is one that helped build me into where I am today. As above, so below, and you're probably wondering, wow, this movie is this high on the list. And well, yeah, it is, because that entire beginning of the movie all the way through the middle, the end of it gets a little but for about 3/4 of the movie at least, especially the way it begins, where you've got, this archaeology and the history, and they're almost doing like a Indiana Jones, almost like a national treasure type hunt for all this different information. They're kind of on like a grail quest sort of thing. They discover some different lost secrets and take that information and dive into the Paris catacombs, which is a bucket list item for me. And so they're searching and exploring through the Paris catacombs, and then they throw in some hermeticism with it, with the as above so below, and they're discovering all these old secrets down into these caves as they go further and further down. So it's very, very cool stuff. Then there's The Ring. Of course, The Ring, you got Samara climbing up out of the well, but it's a lot more than just that. Now, on the premise, it sounds a little hokey. I remember throwing this past Shauna, like, you'd really like this movie. And of course, the way I originally presented is, there's this videotape that's going around that if you watch it, you die. And it's like, once it fell out of my mouth, it's like, yeah, that sounds kind of hokey. And of course, she's looking at me like, what's the big deal? But, it's so much more than just the videotape. The stuff that's included on the videotape, as you go through and you watch the little bits and pieces, they all tie into the origins of what happened with Samara, what happened with her mother and her family, and where she originally came from. And so, very, very interesting how Naomi Watts, Rachel, takes those bits and pieces as clues, and it becomes a mystery movie. Even though it's a paranormal movie, even though it's a bit of a horror flick, that sort of thing, there is a lot of mystery that's mixed up into all this that she's basically playing like Private Eye. Of course, she's an investigative reporter, so she's going to do that. So, and another thing that I told Shauna about this movie is that she would love the research aspect of it. I already mentioned how she plays a bit of a private eye, but her investigative methods and, digging up old newspaper articles and, examining film closely and things like that, those are things that we do at Haunted Road Media as part of Society of the Haunted as we do our paranormal investigations. So it really plays into exactly what we do. And then if there's a number one for the Halloween season, not necessarily a paranormal movie, although you could make a case for it, that's Halloween. The ultimate Halloween movie is, of course, Halloween. So you gotta watch Halloween on Halloween. It's just tradition. But yeah, more of a slasher flick, I know. And I didn't have any slasher flicks on here. It's all paranormal related movies. But you can make a case for Michael Myers being supernatural. After all, Dr. Loomis saying that, there is a evil within him, the black eyes, and just the fact that he can, get stabbed, get hurt, get poked in the eye with hangers, fall, multiple stories and just get up and walk away from it. That's not natural. None of that is natural. So you could make a case that there's something, supernatural about Michael Myers. And so Halloween is just, you got to watch that on Halloween, so that goes number one. It just has to. And they got the new Halloween movie coming out. Jamie Lee Curtis is reprising her role after all these years, so I'm looking forward to that. It'd be very, very cool. So a couple of honorable mentions that I want to throw here at the ends. As far as like an independent film, I do want to mention Dwelling. So written and directed by my friend Kyle Mecca. Very, very cool movie. It stars Erin Marie Hogan, Devaney Penn, Mushaka Benson, the guy with like the coolest name ever. It's a very, very different movie in the fact that they actually buy a house knowing that it's haunted in an attempt to reconcile issues with their deceased mother. So different premise, which I really enjoyed, and some great concepts within that movie. And if you're wondering with my list what happened to such classics like Beetlejuice or Young Frankenstein, while I do watch those around Halloween, I consider those to be fun movies and not really paranormal movies with a deep, thrilling storyline that keeps you on the edge of your seat. Also, I want to throw out another one that's not necessarily a paranormal movie, but one that I end up watching all the time around now and basically throughout the year. It's kind of like a standby when I need background noise because it's a very, very cool twist. And that's Predestination, Ethan Hawke and Sarah Snook. You could also make a case for it being a bit supernatural. There's a lot of paradoxes within this movie. There's time travel and things like this. So it was more, I guess, more of a sci-fi. It's based off of the short story All You Zombies from the 1950s. So hey, you even got some zombies thrown in there for good measure. You got Halloween, you got zombies too, right? So thank you for watching Mike's Morning Mug here on the Haunted Road Media YouTube channel. If you haven't yet, please go ahead and subscribe. Check out all of our other paranormal videos on the side here. Till next time.